All right, today I want to talk about a video camera that may be a good tool for you and may be able to capture some pretty nice video for a decent price used. All right, so the camera that I'm talking about is the Sony CX900. Now, this isn't a professional video camera per se. It's more of a prosumer model. It's probably something you can find in Best Buy. But it does have some more advanced features that a videographer might like, such as ND filters and being able to manually control your shutter, gain, and iris with just a turn of a knob. So I found it and I liked it, and I was like, well, let me buy this and try it out. And what I find is the image quality that comes out of this camera is actually pretty good, but it is missing a few features. But first, I just want to talk about some of the good points about this particular camera. Now, the first point is it has really, really good zoom. It has a 24 times zoom. So, I mean, to put that in perspective, that's like if you figure it's shooting at 24 millimeters wide open, which honestly, I'm not sure if that's what it is. It might be 24, it could be 22, it could be 28. I'm not sure, but let's just say it's 24, and that's the 35 millimeter equivalent. Well, 24 times 24 is 576. So it could go from 24 millimeters all the way to 576 millimeters. That's a pretty good zoom. So that's probably one of the best features about this camera, I would say. The next is it does have a 50 megabit codec, which is very capable of capturing very clear, nice looking footage, as you can see from some of the examples. So that's another nice feature to it. It does shoot up to 60 frames per second, so you could do a little bit of slow motion. It actually has pretty decent low light performance. It has a 1-inch sensor in it. So this is not a typical video camera that has like a 2/3 of an inch sensor in it or a 1/2-inch sensor. It actually has a 1-inch. So it is capturing more light than your typical camera. So this is 18 dB right now. This is 18 dB. This is 21 dB, 24 dB, (27 dB), 30 dB, 33 dB. This is 30 dB, so this is all the way to the top. And this lighting situation is extremely dark. I would never shoot like this. But this is just to show you what it would look like if you shot at the worst, in the worst situation. All right, so that's f3.4, and this is f24, just for sake of comparison, because the grain might be a little bit better in this situation. Let's try f27. Let's try f30. Okay. Of course, you have the option in here to turn your low lux on and off. When I was shooting those outdoor shots at the library, the low lux was actually on, and I really feel that it did add more detail to the shot. It actually took more of the grain out. So it seems to work pretty well when you put it in low lux. Unlike most low lux settings on a lot of camcorders, it doesn't just simply boost your gain to the top, open your aperture as wide as possible, and slow down your shutter. No, you can still control all that stuff manually, the same way you would do if low lux was off, but somehow it just takes out some of the grain. Works pretty well. Like I mentioned before, you could quickly change your iris, your shutter, and your gain just by pressing a button and turning a knob. So it's a nice quick feature that makes it more of a professional camera than a consumer level camera. Also, it does come with image stabilization. So you are capable of getting some handheld shots and not having a lot of wobble in your shot. It also does come with ND filters. So it has 3 levels of ND filters, which is always a great thing to have. So you don't have to put a lens adapter, or excuse me, not a lens adapter, but a lens filter on the lens. It's right in the camera. Also, you can switch that ND filter to auto mode. So you can also automatically have the camera adjust the ND for you, which, in most cases people don't like auto mode, but in some situations when you're really running and stuff and you don't have time to focus on every technical detail of the camera, it is nice to be able to set that particular function into auto. It also has zebras, right? And you could even modify your zebras to say, okay, turn on when the picture is exposed, white is exposed to 70%. Or whatever. So you could change this. So you do have focus peaking, and you can also change the color of your focus peaking. So you could change to yellow, white, red. I always just leave it on red. But you turn that on, and of course, so you can use the focus peaking to get your focus. Now, what I don't like about the zebras and focus peaking on this particular camera, there's no quick way through the buttons to turn it off and on. A lot of times when I'm using zebras, I use it to expose my shot, but then I turn it off because it's just kind of in the way and I can't really see what I'm shooting very well. The same thing with focus peaking. I don't always just leave that on at all times. Sometimes I just want it on for a second and then I turn it off. And there also is a nice touch to focus feature. So you can just tap the screen and pick where you want to focus. So it is a touchscreen LCD. There's a full auto button that you could press. So like I said, if you were running and you needed to just not worry about aperture gain and shutter speed, you could just hit the full auto button, which is AE program, and it just takes control of all those functions for you, just in case. There's also a white balance button. So you also have a quick white balance button that you can press. It does take you to a menu once you press it, and then you can select your presets or do a manual white balance or choose your Kelvin. You still have to go through the menu, but it brings up that menu very quickly with one touch of a button. I find that to be very quick and efficient. So there are some quick buttons on there. There aren't a ton of quick buttons, but there are some, and the ones that are there are useful, except for maybe like the night shot button. I don't know who would really use that, but it's there. And there is a focus magnifier. So you can click the button, the camera will zoom in really tight to whatever you're trying to focus on, and you can make sure you dial in your focus very precisely. You also have a mic input right there and a USB input as well. You have a headphone jack and an HDMI output. So you can output this to a monitor, a television, whatever. Now let's talk about some of the bad points about the camera. So the camera has no high-speed settings. So you can't do, like I said, you could do 60 frames per second, but you can't do 120 frames per second. You can't do 240, which not a big deal. A lot of cameras don't do 240, but it doesn't have 120. Is that a deal breaker? Not really. I mean, if you're into high speed, just so you know, it doesn't have it. Also, the autofocus on this camera is really not very good. However, there is a firmware update, and it might make it a little bit better. The only reason I did not install it is because I actually sold this camera, and I didn't want to install the firmware and then have something happen to the camera, because, that's just how things work. You sell it, you install firmware, and all of a sudden it's a brick. So I didn't want to take the risk. Another thing that I really don't like about this camera, you can't customize the picture all that much. There is like a cinema tone mode, which kind of like, messes with the contrast. It boosts the brightness a little bit, kind of crushes the blacks a little bit, it looks like. But that's really all you can do to modify your picture. You can't change the black levels. You can't change the contrast. You can't change the sharpness / detail. You really have no controls over that. I really don't like that. Also, there is no XLR handle with this particular camera. Now you're saying it's a prosumer camera, so why should it, right? And that makes perfect sense. However, this camera brand new is like $1,200. It's really not cheap. So you would think it will come with some features because it's kind of expensive. I did not pay that much for it. I got it used. I would never pay that much for this camera. But it would be nice if it had a handle. All right, so here's the hot shoe. You see it's kind of sunken in to the body. So you need an adapter so that you can put another cold shoe mount on it so you can mount to light or shotgun. It's kind of a nuisance, kind of annoying that they did it that way. That's proprietary. It'd be nice if it was just raised up, it was right here or something. Okay, and the other thing, the last thing is it has Wi-Fi control, but when you control this camera with your phone, all the operations from the camera turn off. So once you're controlling it with your phone, you cannot operate it from the camera at all. So it pretty much shuts down the LCD screen. So you can't do anything. None of the buttons work. That kind of sucks. So in summary, the CX900 is a good camera. I think if you could get it for a bargain off of eBay or Amazon, you know, used for anywhere from like $550 to maybe $700, I would say it might be worth it. If you pay any more than that, I really don't think it's worth it. I think it's overpriced, brand new. I don't know where they get off charging so much for this particular camera. But all in all, it still does have excellent image quality. The low light performance is very good for a video camcorder. It's certainly not a bad camera. It's just not one that I'm going to keep. So if you found this review helpful, was useful, please like it. Subscribe to my channel for future videos where I'll talk about more gear, tips and tricks, and all that good stuff. Thanks for watching, and I guess I'll see you soon.